Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, how's it going today? Hope you're having a wonderful day so far, or if you're just starting, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm back with more positive, feel-good stories to share with you. And I thought I would start with some pretty good news about COVID-19, since that is our world right now. As we all know, of course, the world is continuing to fight, stop the curb of coronavirus outbreaks. But fortunately, several countries have announced significant recoveries over this past week, and so they're going to start lifting up those restriction bans. So France, Italy, and Spain were the countries with the highest numbers of confirmed cases outside of the U.S., and they just said that their plans for slowly lifting their social restrictions are going to continue. So they're kind of slowly lifting those up. Italy is recording their lowest number of new cases since March 10th. Schools will not reopen until September. Small businesses and restaurants will soon be allowed to reopen, just as long as customers are limited to takeout options and just some more social distancing guidelines. Factories will also be reopened for manufacturing, and people will be allowed to visit relatives in small numbers. In Spain, they just celebrated a significant decline in the related deaths to the coronavirus. So now the daily counts falling below 300 for the first time since March 20th. The government officials say that they will be slow to reopen the economy, but they are going to start lifting social restrictions and allowing children to play outside for 1 hour per day, which is a first for the nation's youth after spending 6 weeks in isolation. I can't imagine how excited those kids are to get outside. France also said that they had their largest single-day drop in COVID-19 deaths, so it fell by more than 33% in just 24 hours. So France recorded their lowest number of in-hospital deaths in 5 weeks. New Zealand was quick to enact some of the world's strictest social restrictions after confirming a few cases back in March. But now they have succeeded in eliminating the community transmission of COVID-19. So this just means that there will still be likely new cases of the virus, but healthcare officials will know where it's being transmitted. New Zealand has had 1,500 confirmed or probable cases of coronavirus over the past 2 months, but the government officials have reported that they will start to be cautious in gradually lifting social restrictions, just starting with some non-essential businesses at first. South Australia also announced that they're considering easing travel restrictions because they did make it 7 days without a new case, so that's great. They are crediting to the province testing more than 15,000 people within a 2-week period, so now there are only 14 active cases. Taiwan has been also celebrating their milestone of 17 days straight without any new local cases, for the first 4-day streak without any new domestic or imported COVID-19 cases. So there you have it. There's some of the countries that have been hit the hardest. They are starting to look on the brighter side, which is exciting. Since we're on this whole topic of positive COVID-19 news, I thought I would share this article I found about working from home. I think with all these changes, people are actually starting to like working from home. So this article and survey that I found, they are saying that there's so many benefits to working at home. 48% of workers would take a pay cut to continue to work at home. So at first, of course, everyone's been forced to start working from their home. So there was a global poll of 2,250 office workers suggest that many of them are actually much happier working from home. 77% believe working from home is one of the most effective ways to help the environment. There's also another poll that said office workers feel about working from their home and their environment impact. So it says that 1,000 U.S. office workers, 250 office workers in India, the UK, Brazil, and Germany, 125 office workers in Australia, and 125 office workers in New Zealand. It's 84% of the respondents were worrying about their environment impact. Over 75% of respondents say their commute to work is something they feel guilty about when it comes to the daily impact it has on the environment. So the average office worker surveyed revealed that they used to spend nearly an hour every single day commuting to and from their jobs. So that's about 5 hours each week office workers could get back just by working at home. There was another poll that revealed 48% of participants would happily take a pay cut if it meant that they could work from home indefinitely. It says, we've long seen the benefits of remote work to allow employees to have more flexible schedules. But as most of the world has turned to full-time remote working amidst COVID-19 pandemic, one of the unexpected benefits is the impact that it's already having on the environment. So that was Mark Strassman, the SVP and GM for Unified Communications and Collaborations at LogMeIn, the survey company. So it's not just the environmental benefit that people are noticing, and that's been so appealing to all the workers at home, but saving time with their commute, 72% said that, as well as saving money. 66% is a huge perk to working from home. Of course, it's the ability to spend more time with your family and friends. 56% said that. Feeling happier, 45%, and actually being more productive, 37%. 57% said that working from home provides them with the ability to embrace a more flexible schedule, while 48% said that they can save money on things like their commute or childcare when they work remotely. 56% say they simply enjoy the ability to wear whatever they want from working from home. That has to be my favorite part. And 46% of those studies said that one of the best things about working remotely is being close to their kitchen, and 44% can get some of their weekend chores out of the way. So the top 5 perks of working from home: flexible schedule, 52%, saving money, 48%, access to kitchen, 47%, wearing whatever you want, 45%, and completing your weekend to-do list, 44%. So a lot of people are going to be asking to stay from home, I think. He says, it's clear from our survey that office workers are concerned about their impact behavior to having on the environment. And allowing them to work full-time or even part-time remote can help to mitigate carbon emissions, save employees time, and ultimately create a work culture where employees are happier and more productive. It'll be very interesting to see what happens next, how many people do start working from home, and how that affects our world, but time will tell. Now, this next story, I've been talking about this special man for quite some time, a few weeks now, because he's been doing something pretty incredible. You would probably know him as Captain Tom, and the world has come together to celebrate his 100th birthday, and as well as his $40 million fundraiser that he did by walking laps in his backyard. So if you haven't heard about Captain Tom, his name is Captain Thomas Moore. He's a World War II veteran, and he has really just gotten the eyes of so many people because he's been raising millions of dollars for healthcare workers that are fighting the coronavirus. So they wanted to celebrate his special day. So businesses, celebrities, government officials, hospitals, children, social media users. Everyone came around to celebrate his birthday and make it special. He started his fundraising on April 6th. He was just going to do 100 laps, raise some money before his 100th birthday, but it completely took over. He actually had a new Guinness World Record for money raised on behalf of the healthcare system. Came up to $40 million that he raised for the healthcare system. So he did, of course, get some recognition for this achievement. He was officially promoted from the rank of captain to honorary colonel in letter that was presented by Lieutenant Thomas Miller, and it was approved by Her Majesty the Queen. He was also given a Royal Air Force flyby by a Spitfire and Hurricane over his home in Bedfordshire. So he was flooded with more than 125,000 birthday cards. He says that he opened all of them individually and displayed in the walls of his grandson's school. So that's pretty cool. He got actually a special handwritten well wishes from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, Prince William, and Duchess Kate, and England football captain Harry Kane. So this is words from the Queen. It says, "I'm so pleased to know that you are celebrating your 100th birthday. I was also most interested to hear of your recent fundraising efforts for NHS charities together at this difficult time. I send my congratulations and best wishes to you on such a special occasion." The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, sent a message just to show his appreciation. He says, "I know I speak for the whole nation when I say we wish you a very happy 100th birthday. Your heroic efforts have lifted the spirits of the entire nation. You've created a channel to enable millions to say a heartfelt thank you to the remarkable men and women in our NHS who have all been doing the most outstanding job." If you did listen to some of my other episodes where I talked about Captain Tom, people were signing a petition to have him knighted. But he says despite all the appreciation and praise, he just wanted to remain humble, during his celebration with the press. And he just requested that at the end of the event, there would be a round of applause for all healthcare workers. So he says, reaching 100 is quite something. Reaching 100 with such interest in me and huge generosity from the public is very overwhelming. People keep saying what I have done is remarkable. However, it's actually what you have done for me, which is remarkable. Please always remember, tomorrow will be a good day. What a nice story. All right. It is time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere when we get back. I have more positive, feel-good stories to share with you, including what 2 celebrities are doing to help fight the coronavirus outbreak. So stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello, we are back. And like I said before the break, I have a story about some celebrities and what they're doing to help the fight against coronavirus. So Thomas Hanks and Rita Wilson, they're offering up their antibodies to help research coronavirus treatments. So that's pretty cool. They're going to be donating their blood to help scientists develop potential treatments for COVID-19. So as you probably know, they tested positive for coronavirus back in March. They had been overseas in Australia, and so they did recover from the virus in April. And Tom has kind of gone to social media to show his recovery as a source of hope and amusement for lots of people. But now he's saying, he confirms that his blood now carries antibodies against COVID-19. And he says that he and Rita will be donating their blood to further coronavirus research. Says, we have not only been approached about donating blood, we have said, do you want our blood? Can we give plasma? And in fact, we will be giving it now to the places that hope to work on what I would like to call the Hank scene. Instead of a vaccine. Clever, isn't he? Well, the treatment is not likely to be named, of course, after him, but scientists are currently researching the plasma treatment, which I have talked about before on this podcast since all of the outbreaks. So it's an experimental therapy. It's recently been approved for testing by the FDA, and so the treatment involves drawing blood plasma out of an individual who has built up an immunity to the virus as a result of their recovery. And then the plasma, which is just full of antibodies that have grown to fight the virus, is then injected into a sick patient so the antibodies can theoretically attack the virus for its new host. So hospitals across the country are now searching for recovered COVID-19 patients to donate blood plasma. I mentioned on an earlier episode some NBA players that gave their blood plasma for research as well before. And now we have Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. So Tom Hanks responded saying, there could be no better ending to this international catastrophe than if the cure turns out to be the blood of Tom Hanks. Leave it to Tom Hanks to put a smile on people's faces. All right, my next story is about a tea company, and they have been TPing people's homes with a surprise gift, and that's helping them stay in business during all of this craziness. So it's a Florida loose leaf tea company, and they wanted to keep their business open, and they wanted to spread some joy and make people smile during all of it. So over the past month, dozens of Orlando homeowners have been surprised to find that their yards have been TP'd, is what they're calling it, by some of the employees from Infusion Tea Beverage Company. So, of course, when you think of TP'd, you think of people throwing toilet paper all over your house. But these employees have put their own kind of spin onto that, and they've been leaving gifts of toilet paper with loose leaf tea packages and yard signs that just have messages of appreciation on people's front yards. So I guess some customers have been purchasing the yard sign care packages as a surprise gift for friends and families, and then they the tea company has launched a contactless delivery service, and they have just been racking up orders and spreading kindness wherever they can. So the service became huge right away. Right away there was 1,300 TV packages and yard signs purchased for local homeowners as soon as they kind of launched the idea. So it's been so successful for the business. They've been able to actually rehire some of their laid off staff. They can also offer to mail the TP care packages to people nationwide. So if this is something you want to TP your own house or TP someone else's, you can also order them online. The owner of Infusion Tea, Brad Coherd, says, "We call it our little COVID miracle. We have been able to bring back all of our furloughed employees that want to come back. Everyone's working that wants to be working. It's good for the employees and it's good for the morale." If you want to purchase a tea care package for a loved one, a healthcare worker, teacher, or a friend, just visit the Infusion Tea website and you can get one of those shipped to you, or if you're in the area, they will go and put it on your front yard just for you. So interesting to see what all these little companies and big companies are doing to stay afloat during this craziness. All right, so now my next story, I'm going to flip to some environmental stories for a little bit here. Some researchers, for the very first time, have made plants that glow, and they've made this sustainably. So they're saying that these plants could light up our homes. So researchers have succeeded in creating these plants that produce their own visible light. And I guess they say that the possibilities we have for these plants are just endless. So they revealed this bioluminescence found in some mushrooms is metabolically similar to the natural process common among plants. So by inserting DNA obtained from the mushroom, the scientists were able to create plants that grow much brighter than they were previously possible. So the biological light can be used for scientists to observe the inner working of plants. So the plants containing the mushroom DNA glow continuously throughout their life cycle from seeding to maturity. So this breakthrough is similar to a project that they launched by MIT scientists back in 2017, and it used nanoparticle infusions to turn the plant's stored energy into light. Although the glow only lasted for about 4 hours at a time. So the researchers later used their glowing plants for an art exhibit exploring possibilities of integrating the plants into modern eco-friendly architecture. But Michael Stranrow, the Carbon P. Dubs professor of chemical engineering at MIT, says, "Lighting right now consumes a vast portion of our energy demand, approaching close to 20% of our global energy consumption, generating 2 gigatons of carbon dioxide per year. Consider that the plants replace more than just the lamp on your desk. There's an enormous energy footprint that could potentially be replaced by light-emitting plant." So these plants that they have just kind of discovered and what they've done with them, they can be used for practical and aesthetic purposes, of course, but they are also saying, you could replace street lights with glowing trees because they produce a pleasant kind of green from their living energy. So Light Bio is a new company that plans to commercialize this novel technology in ornamental houseplants in partnership with Planta. So the Light Bio CEO, Dr. Keith Wood, says, 30 years ago, I helped to create the first luminous scent plant using a gene from fireflies. These new plants can produce a much brighter and more steady glow, which is fully embodied within their genetic code. So designing new biological features is quite complex than just moving genetic parts from an organism to another. So gears, it's kind of, this is how they're explaining it. Like gears in a watch, the newly added parts must metabolically integrate within the host. For most organisms, these parts needed for bioluminescence are not all known. And then until recently, a complete part list was available only for bacterial bioluminescence. But past attempts to create glowing plants from these parts have not gone well. Pretty much because bacterial parts typically did not work properly together in the more complex organisms. So just a little over a year ago, scientists uncovered the parts that sustain bioluminescence in mushrooms. For the first time, the living light of advanced multicellular organism was fully defined. And now in this present report, the authors disclose the mushroom bioluminescence works particularly well in plants. This allows them to make glowing plants that are at least tenfold brighter, and they use ordinary cameras and smartphones. Green illumination was recorded from these leaves and stems, roots, and flowers. So it sustained light production and was achieved without harming the health of the plants. Pretty cool. I definitely could go for some pretty light up plants in my house. All right. It's time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. When we get back, I have more great stories to share with you to brighten up your day. So stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. All right, we are back. I'm sharing more great stories with you. This next one is pretty cool all around the world. So they are saying that global greenhouse gas emissions are estimated to fall by 8% in 2020. So this is the largest recorded drop in history. Pretty incredible. So, of course, since the COVID-19 pandemic has given us quite the shock to the global economy, more than 7 decades, they are saying. But this new research is saying that the outbreaks are likely to result in a record-breaking 8% annual decline in carbon emissions. So this is the largest decrease in history. A new report that was just released last week by the International Energy Agency provides an almost real-time view of COVID-19 pandemic's extraordinary impact across all major fuels. It's based on analysis of more than 100 days of real data so far this year. And the IEA's Global Energy Review includes estimates for how energy consumption and carbon dioxide emissions trends to likely to evolve over the rest of 2020. So Dr. Faith Birol, he is the IEA executive director, and he says only renewables are holding up during the previously unheard of slump in electricity use. It is still too early to determine the longer-term impacts, but the energy industry that emerges from the crisis will significantly different from the one that came before. So the Global Energy Review's projections of energy demand and energy-related emissions for 2020 are based on assumptions that the lockdowns implemented around the world to the response to the pandemic, us all being stuck inside, are progressively eased in most of the countries in the coming months, and then that's accompanied by a gradual economic recovery. So to try to put it in perspective for you, the report is saying that the energy demand will fall 6% in 2020, so that's 7 times the decline after the 2008 global financial crisis. And so this is equivalent of losing the entire energy demand of India. And India is the world's 3rd largest energy consumer. So that can kind of put it in perspective for you. So advanced economies are expected to see the biggest declines, with demand set to fall by 9% in the United States and by 11% in the European Union. The impact of the crisis on the energy demand is heavily dependent on the duration and stringency of measures to curb the spread of the virus. For instance, the IEA found that each month of worldwide lockdown at the level seen in early April reduces annual global energy demand by 1.5%. So the changes to electricity use during the lockdowns have resulted in significant declines in overall electricity demand, as we kind of know here. So full lockdowns have pushed down electricity demand by 20% or more, and then lesser impacts from partial lockdowns are a little bit less. But electricity demand is set to decline by 5% in 2020, which is the largest drop since the Great Depression in the 1930s. Lockdown measures are driving a major shift towards low carbon sources of electricity, including wind, solar, PV, hydropower, and nuclear. So after overtaking coal for the first time ever in 2019, low carbon sources are set to extend their lead this year to reach 40% of global electricity generation, 6% points ahead of coal. Electricity generation from wind and solar PV continues to increase in 2020. It's lifted by new projects that were completed in 2019 and earlier 2020. And addition to report from Energy Research, they say that wind and solar power are now the cheapest sources of new energy development for 2/3 of the world's population. So Dr. Birol says this crisis has underlined the deep reliance of modern societies on reliable electricity supplies for supporting healthcare systems, businesses, and the basic amenities of daily life. But nobody should take any of this for granted. Greater investments and smaller policies are needed to keep electricity supplies secure. So there we have it. It says, resulting from economic trauma around the world, the historic decline in global emissions is absolutely nothing to cheer. But governments can learn from the 2008 crisis by putting clean energy technologies, renewables, efficiency batteries, hydrogen, and carbon capture at the heart of their plans for economic recovery. Investing in those areas can create jobs, make economies more competitive, and steer the world toward a more resilient and cleaner energy future. As we know, due to the coronavirus outbreaks, many people have been left unemployed all over the world. And so the Pakistani government has found a way to provide jobs to citizens while also foresting the nation. So they're hiring, or they have hired, thousands of newly unemployed laborers for their pretty ambitious project they have going on right now. So they created more than 63,000 jobs for unemployed day laborers when they relaunched the 10 billion tree campaign. So this is the 5-year initiative. It was started by the Prime Minister, Imran Khan, back in 2018, and it was shut down at the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, and just because of everyone was in quarantine. But now they said with thousands of agricultural workers facing unemployment amidst all the lockdowns, the program was relaunched earlier at the beginning of April, and they have created more than 63,000 jobs. So the laborers are still required to wear face masks and they respect social distancing guidelines, but they are getting paid as what they call jungle workers. They're planting saplings and protecting the trees from fires and illegal logging. So the Pakistani government has reportedly been planting the majority of these trees in rural, low-income areas where locals can benefit from the work. So they are just providing work for everybody. So the nation's environment ministers go on to say that they hope to hire 3 times as many workers as last year in order to meet their goal of planting 20 million saplings by the end of 2020. And this would bring the project's total to 50 million trees. That's a lot of trees. So this is not the first time that the nation has made headlines for planting their trees. The 10 billion tree is a continuation of another extensive tree planting government effort that resulted in more than 300,000 new jobs and millions of saplings planted across the province back in 2017. Malik Aslam, who is the climate change advisor for the Prime Minister, said that the legislators hope to continue using the pandemic as a tool to ramp up their efforts against climate change. He says, this tragic crisis provided an opportunity and we grabbed it. Nurturing nature has come to the economic rescue of thousands of people. All right, and for my last story, I thought this was pretty cool. A Texas high school principal traveled 800 miles and visited 612 graduating seniors on their doorsteps. As we know, so many high schools, all the seniors did not get to have their prom and their graduation. So I've seen lots of little stories of schools doing different things, and this principal traveled 800 miles. It's pretty cool. So the Willie High School principal, Verdi Montgomery, and his wife, they spent 12 days visiting a total of, 636 addresses to find all 612 graduating seniors. He says, I tell you what, that at the end of the first day, it felt like I had made a mistake. Because it was hard. I get emotional real easy with these kids, and I just didn't feel like I was doing enough. It just seemed like the right thing to do. He says, in lieu of the diploma, he did hand out each senior a note and a Snickers candy bar, an attempt at a dad joke, he says, that one day the students would all snicker about having to stay home rather than walk across the stage in their caps and gowns. He says, I delivered that joke nearly 600 times, so it's pretty lame. I'm so very proud of them and the way that they've handled everything. So he did say that he's still working on organizing a graduation ceremony, but he's not sure when the state will lift restrictions and banning large gatherings. So it's kind of just time will tell at this point. Well, that is all the stories that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I appreciate you being here. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I can't wait to share more feel-good stories with you next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.